Hey everyone, this is Kobra Paige from Kobra and the Lotus, and you are listening to Sonic Perspectives.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to another brand new episode of our interview and podcast series. This is your host, Eric Woody, contributing author and interviewer here at Sonic Perspectives. My guest today is vocalist and songwriter of the Canadian metal band Kobra And The Lotus, who have 4 studio albums out already and have a 5th one coming out very soon titled Prevail II. Let's welcome Kobra Paige. How's it going, Kobra?
Great, thank you very much for having me.
Alright, well, let's start off by talking about your path in music. You sing and play piano. Which one did you develop first?
They actually happened simultaneously. I started them both at 8 years old. So I guess I was a little behind compared to some people out there. I think a lot of people started around 4 or something, sometimes with the piano. But yeah, they happened at the same time.
And which one did you prefer? Did you prefer piano or did you prefer singing?
I actually preferred singing when I was younger. And I was really, whoops, I hit heartbeat somehow on here. I'm playing my own music in the background of our interview. I preferred singing.
And I understand that you started out as a classical singer. It's so funny that a good many of metal singers, especially female ones, have some sort of a classical background. Why do you think this is?
I think because it's especially for a place of learning and technique, breath support, all the basics around developing a strong voice. It's a very natural place to go to start learning from.
Oh, okay. So would you say that, your classical training has made you a better metal singer now?
Well, I think that the biggest thing that it's done is because I've heard many great untrained voices. I think that the biggest thing for me is the breath support and those learnings around the technique and protecting your voice and using your breath for resonance and the muscles, like the bones in your face and stuff, instead of using your throat muscles and hurting yourself. It's been a really big key for me with longevity.
And what exactly made you get into the rock and metal genre? Was there a specific album or performance that inspired you?
Yeah, there was. Judas Priest came through when I was 15 on a Painkiller tour. And that was the moment where I thought I want to start a band because the energy was just something I'd never seen before. I've been really into punk rock before that. And when I saw Judas Priest and the dual guitars, Halford, oh man, the way the audience was making energy with the band was just amazing to me. And also, it looked like a place where my voice that I naturally have could fit because I knew I liked alternative music, but I didn't know where my voice fit yet. And I never was heavy into symphonic female-fronted metal, so I wasn't familiar with any of it yet. And this really presented that opportunity to my brain, like, oh yeah, like maybe I can fit in here.
And after your first Canadian tour back in 2009, you changed your vocal style to the point to where many industry writers thought the band had a new singer. Why did you decide to change?
Because that was my natural voice, and I had really created kind of a facade voice type when I was younger. I was 17 when those songs started getting written on that first album, and I was really especially still into hair metal as well, and I wanted to have this rasp or edge. I had also a belief in my head that I needed something more because I was a girl, and that really quickly fell down after we toured through Canada the first time because I couldn't keep that up without hurting my voice. So I went back to my original ways, and then Welcome to My Funeral came out, and that was the first song. I actually wrote that song, and it was because I needed to make something. It was my first experiment with putting the shift towards what needed to happen, what I thought musically for myself and also with my vocals.
Okay, and you say you were into hair metal at the time. Are there any hair metal bands that you like specifically?
Well, when I was a younger teen, I loved Motley Crue, and I would tease my hair like their hair every day in high school. And I would wear little cut-off gloves. And I loved Rat, and I loved especially Skid Row with Sebastian Bach. He was actually the first guy I thought was like a real rock star. I was watching his videos in Wembley Stadium, 1991, I believe, and just watching him singing and walking around the stage like a madman in those leather pants with no shirt on, banging his long hair around. I was like, yeah, that used to get me so jacked up when I was younger. I loved his voice, and I still love Sebastian Bach's voice on those songs.
And people have stated that you guys keep getting better and better with each new album, and your most recent album, Prevail I, is your best album to date. Even the single Trigger Pulse, your first Spotify release, had around 2 million plays within its first 6 months. And, that's quite a feat, considering that was only your fourth album. What does this level of success mean to you guys?
Well, when I think about how long we've been around, Trigger Pulse, it essentially came out in our 10th year that the band has existed. And so the timing of everything has felt right in the evolution, because we're not brand new. We've just finally, I think, written something that maybe is just getting a little further out there with people. And also, I think our hard work and touring is finally getting the name out there a little more, which is very nice to see. It means a ton to us because we've really been working hard for a decade. And it only was last year that we really noticed, yeah, okay, people are really starting to find the name.
And your upcoming album shares the same name as your previous one. Is there some kind of connection between the two besides the name?
Yep, there's a big connection between the themes, as well as the sound. The concept is all about humanity, relation, connection to one another, and also going through a spectrum of emotions that I think are key emotions that people go through in their own ways and have a ton of connection to each other through, but don't realize it sometimes because it's very easy to feel isolated and alone. And that's why music, I think, does really brighten people's worlds sometimes, when the times are dark, because it's like a friend that's always there, and it gets you sometimes, like the words speak to you. And I just think it's so interesting because if the words are speaking to one person and they're speaking to more than one person, that means that all those people they're related some way. So in some shape or form, this was to just promote a positive impact and unity, and also go through self-reflection. I mean, when I started going through the songs after the fact, I saw a lot of myself in them. And even if I didn't write it about myself specifically, it was really interesting just to find those pieces. I was like, yeah, I think I have this piece, and this piece definitely is in me and almost everyone I see. And I think these albums, they're just they're about the human experience, and they're about prevailing through your own life. And I think if everyone gave it an honest listen and listens to the words, they would find some part of each album that they really click with the message, I mean.
Yeah, I had the privilege of listening to your upcoming album, Prevail II, and it is fantastic. I loved it.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, and it's really interesting. You said that some of the lyrics kind of described yourself. Are there any specific songs?
Let me think about Prevail II. I mean, there's tons. You have Let Me Love You, for instance, that just came out, and that song was definitely a love song and about being patient for someone's vulnerability and wanting that trust and having to gently open that up for someone again. But it feels like it's me too. which is interesting. And I think that, well, I can see from comments that people are writing that they think it's about them too. And I feel like that's vulnerability is a very difficult thing for people in this world. I think there's also social stigmas that we have out there that have made it difficult for instance, men. I still think that it's a challenge for, and I'm not a man, but I still, but I see this this need to be tough still. Like men are still not open to show their feelings, or bred to or grown up to believe that, you know. So there's that, and I have a song on there called Whitewater, and that is definitely about me grieving the loss of a really important relationship in my life that's close to me in my family, and not a death, but definitely a massive loss and some hardship there. And grief is something that I think, well, people die all the time. People have heartbreaks all the time through different stuff. You can have a heartbreak if you know, if something happens between you and your mother. It doesn't have to be a love heartbreak. And so I think this grief and also this sense of wanting to do enough and be good enough is also there. So then you have modern day hero. And that was me just thinking about what is the hero, because the hero is defined very differently to me. In our modern day world, it's not like someone that is saving someone out of a burning building all the time. That's one version of a hero, but there's also another version, like people that are just giving the shirt off their back to other people, you know? So it's just stretching the limit with definitions too. And hopefully showing that, because people, I know I do this, we always elevate other people above other people and above ourselves, and tear ourselves down a lot or build ourselves up in an unhealthy way, whatever the imbalance is. And the fact is I really think at the core, most people are just, they're good people, and we don't know who each other are at all. And we don't know what each other does consciously every day in the world. Like, it's interesting.
Okay. Well, yeah, you brought up the song Let Me Love You, and you know, I'm a big metalhead, but I do have a certain soft spot for love songs and ballads, and that one was actually one of my favorites off the new record. And I've even really enjoyed the acoustic bonus track on that album. Have you guys thought of, you know, doing more acoustic songs?
Definitely. And the acoustic guitar made quite an appearance on this album. I don't know if you noticed that. It comes throughout, even in the heavy songs. We layered the electric guitars with acoustic in songs like Heartache. It comes back in the bridge in Modern Day Hero. So it's kind of like in there in a way it hasn't been before. And on the last album, it was on Manifest Destiny in the bridge. And of course, we have an instrumental track that's acoustic on this one, leading into My Immortal. And I think it would be something we will definitely pursue further, and also bring into our live set. It has a different feeling and a different expression. And Let Me Love You, acoustic, is actually the demo version, and it has completely different collaborators on it than the heavy. So that's why it went on there, because it has a different music underneath it, and a different feel, and felt the need for both of them to be shown.
And in which way is Kobra and the Lotus record conceived from inception to mastering?
I guess with Prevail I and II, we organically wrote about 70% of the material off the floor in the studio all together for a good couple months, which was a new thing for us, but it was really wonderful, and we're going to definitely do that again. And once the songs were fully written, I guess they were mixed by Jacob, and then they went to Ted for mastering. And the mastering is actually different from these two albums than it was on the single for Trigger Pulse. We still hadn't decided on the person who was mastering at that time. So we have a mastering engineer, also great, but totally different style of mastering, named Mayor Applebaum. and he did that first single. So yeah, that was the process, and then it was locked up. It was all done after 2016 was over. So those albums were conceived and made and finished in 2016. And we never went back and retweaked. We never went back and rewrote. We just kept the integrity of the albums as they were supposed to be with each other.
And what does the future hold for your future releases? Do you think you guys will, keep exceeding critics and fans' expectations?
You never know. I always would hope so. But that's a nerve-wracking thing. I can understand how people come out with an album later and people are unimpressed when they're, I don't know how many albums down the road. It's got to be a lot of pressure. I mean, I definitely feel pressure after these Prevail I and II albums. It's like, how do you rise up to that bar for people? I think the most important thing is that we just keep creatively expressing ourselves and really feeling passionate about what we're making. And then what it happens when we put it out there, we won't be able to control. Maybe we'll be super passionate about something and people won't feel the same way, but that's all we can do is really put our best foot forward. And another thing is we are using new producers on every album, if you've noticed. And I think that has actually been a really great thing for us so far. That might not be the case forever, but we are already going to do a sixth album by the end of next summer. That's the plan, and it's all booked, and we are going to the studio again with somebody different. So we keep stretching our brain. We keep trying to have whatever things, gems and information someone else has again to bring that into our perspective of what we learned last time.
And you said that you work with different producers for each album. Is that challenging for you guys?
No, actually, it's pretty exciting. I love it, and Yasho loves it, and I think the guys definitely they've expressed that they click with other producers more than others because everyone has a really different style of producing and also communicating. And Jacob, yeah, it was a very well-rounded, great experience for everyone. And yeah, I just think it's going to be great. The thing that we do next, and we'll have to see what this guy is all about. But I can tell you this much: he is still doing it because he loves music, and I love that when people still have that element in them, even if they're doing very well. He was like, if you're going to rush this or you're going to try and be something else female fronted that already exists, I'm not even opening my door to you. And, I was like, all right, that's awesome. Well, we want to be our own thing, and create stuff and feel very good and passionate about it. So let's do it.
And you've toured with many acclaimed power metal bands such as Camelot and Gus G, for example, as well as some of the bigger rock acts as Kiss and Def Leppard. What was the experience like performing for such different audience groups?
Oh man, so different. Some of the best tours we ever had compatibility-wise were the Camelot tour and the Delane tour, actually. And the Kiss and Def Leppard tour was really fun, and we had an amazing experience, but it was not something that was really an exposing thing for the band because they weren't coming in for the opening band. They were coming in to party. They were coming in to have a good time. And as my bass player likes to say, woohoo and shit. That's his description. He's like, oh, woohoo and shit. And it's great. But it just means that it's even harder for those people, for us to pull them in, to grab attention towards the show. And stages were so huge, and usually the grass section would fill up first, and that was really far away. Even if it was 8 to 10,000 people, it was a 20,000 space, and there was a lot of blank space, and we had to pull in all those people. So it was tough, and I'm glad we had the experience, but definitely I learned something big time in during that amphitheater arena tour, it was not anything that really moved the band forward in the way that you would think it would, getting, playing for shows that big.
And so far with your touring experience, you've also played where you came away with major wow factor thinking. In other words, what crowd reaction was the most rewarding?
Um, I would say Camelot. We also just did a tour with a band called Beyond the Black from Germany, and that was great.
And after touring with many different bands, is there anyone in particular you'd like to share the stage with?
I would actually really still love to share the stage with the Disturbed. I saw them a couple years ago, and I never really had listened to them much before. And Johnny Kay, who did our High Priestess record, he took me to the House of Blues to watch their comeback show, like before they were going to tour again. And it had been after a couple years hiatus. And I was just so impressed because I'd never watched them before. And I could see like this guy singing, and I could see the musicianship, and man, the guitarist is great. And also he was making all these vocal noises that I don't know how he makes. It's like alien or something. So I think that would be awesome. And then there's a teenage fantasy in me that wants to tour with Avenged Sevenfold.
And now that you've established yourself as a singer, touring with your own band as well as providing guest vocals, have you thought of doing any solo projects?
I have, absolutely. Actually, I'm currently already thinking about that. I just have not had found the time yet while we've been preparing this launch and tour. But I would love to do a solo project, and once I have a gap of time, I'm going to get started on it. Hopefully this summer I'll start writing for it, and it's not going to be metal.
Oh, okay. If it's not going to be metal, what kind of genre did you have in mind?
I'm not sure quite yet what it's going to be. It's going to be definitely folky, though, to a degree, because there's a big part of myself that loves folk music and singer-songwriter style stuff. So it will definitely start there.
Okay, and back in 2013, the band was listed as the third best emerging rock metal band for the year. That same year, you were in the top 25 women in hard rock and metal. And that's very impressive considering you guys were only around for less than 5 years and had 2 albums out at that point. What was it like to receive such recognition so early in your career?
Yeah, that was surprising. I mean, 2012 was a pretty big year of exposure for us. And I think that we seemed like we were coming hot onto the scene. And then, we just kind of disappeared from there on because we didn't have labels that promoted us. So High Priestess got released and no one even knew. And yeah, that was a big deal. I was very surprised. The funniest thing now is that we're like going into the 11th year, and I've seen us going into some sort of like rock radio awards for new emerging band. And the thing is that we're new in their genre, which is so wild. And there's our old, like our fans coming on there being like, well, they're not new. So how did they get in this category? But it's because we are new to that. We're new to this hard rock thing to a degree. So yeah, no, that was really, really wonderful and surprising. I think we're gonna have to go soon here. I'm so sorry.
Oh, no, it's fine. Thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to speak with us today. I really do appreciate it.
Oh, no, it's the pleasure's all mine. So thank you.
And there you have it, folks. That was Kobra Paige from Kobra and The Lotus, and you heard it here on Sonic Perspectives. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and subscribe to our YouTube channel as well as our podcast. Also, be sure to be on the lookout for their latest album, Prevail II. And as always, we're going to leave you with a single from that album titled Let Me Love You. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see y'all later. Take care.
Oh, darling, don't be so scared. passes.